Hello, welcome. All right, getting your names down. All right. So today we're doing the Northern Colonies. All right. And you'll see if you haven't already, that we are, I do a lot of court history, and then I do a 180 to do revisionist uh, kind of critical history of the same topic, the same colony. All right, and so doing that, are there any questions? Any at all? All right. So as we get into this, the first one, right? We received some of the history from as children of the New England colonies, right? And especially the story of Thanksgiving, etc. And so with that, we have stories of the Pilgrims and of their alleged idealism, right? Their desire for religious freedom, their supposedly egalitarian relationship with the Native Americans. And you get the same story with the up in the north with the Quakers, right? William Penn and the Quakers. So we're going to look at that. And, it has, to some degree, some might say that they have stood the test of time, but that's not the full picture, right? And we're going to look at that today. So what I first do is I do show the degree to which such interpretations do withstand limitedly scrutiny. And then, of course, I show the degree to which they don't show the full picture. So right here, hopefully you could see this. All right. So here you have the New England colonies up in the top. We're going to cover those first. So progressive, Puritan New England and Plymouth colony. All right. So remember, when we're covering these, Plymouth was 10 years sooner in 1620, and you have evidence that they were undergoing some persecution under Archbishop Laud, Laud, back in England. And so you do have it to an extent. You have evidence of the Catholic Church and then the Anglican Church in England playing the villain, right? Of demanding uniformity of religion, uniformity of Christian practice, and persecuting those who dissented in any way, right? From them. And so some of them began to dissent in ways in which they worshiped, ways in which they believed in different parts of the Bible. And you see that in the Reformation, right? In the Protestant Reformation. So they believed differently in authority, and they believed in differently with salvation and how people are justified before God and get to heaven. They even believed in the books of the Bible. The Protestants took out the 7 apocryphal books from the Catholic Bible of 73 books and marked it down to 66 books. If even one person wants to ask me more detail on these doctrinal religious issues, I'll be happy to elaborate. But other than that, this is a U.S. history class, and I don't want to get into more religion than I have to. It's certainly not that I'm not interested in it, but I don't want to bore you with it. So at any rate, you have, a lot of religious religious facets to this topic, right? But one part of it, right, is that they claim to be more, up to date, more progressive in the Protestants. That is right, but in particular, the Protestants not only that were anti-Catholic, but that were anti-Anglican. The Church of England, the Anglican Church, right? It was very, very. You could make the argument it was more like the Catholic Church, despite nominally being Protestant, than it was many of the Protestant denominations. Because after all, right, it separated just over the issue of Henry VIII demanding to have his marriage annulled with Catherine of Aragon, and the Pope refusing to do it. So he stubbornly broke free from the Catholic Church, but he kept the same sacraments, the same books of the Bible, virtually everything the same as the Catholic Church. So that started a myriad of issues with the kind of hardcore Protestants in England, saying, "Come on, Henry, you teased us, right? You're claiming to be Protestant, but you're not." And so the Puritans who wanted to purify the church, the separatists who wanted to separate from the Anglican Church and be truly, more pure, more Protestant. They had issues in which they became persecuted by Henry's Anglican Church and authorities. And like I said, there was an Archbishop of Canterbury named William Laud, Laud. He kind of cracked down on these dissenters. And so the famous group that went to Scrooby in England, they began becoming arrested, having their property confiscated, and they came to Massachusetts, to Plymouth in 1620. And then a larger, more well-to-do group came to Boston, known as the Puritans, in 1630. All right, geographically above them in much greater numbers. And so the Puritans, who came 10 years later, became much more controversial, okay, than the Pilgrims of Plymouth beneath them 10 years sooner. And so sometimes we use it interchangeably as New England, because on one occasion they were combined together by England on a punitive basis, because I won't get into all the details why, but they were being punished. And they're put together collectively as New England. And then another occasion near the War for Independence, they joined forces and called themselves New England. So at any rate, that's what we do sometimes, is just combine them as New England. So at any rate, when they came here, they prided themselves on a few things. Is for one, right, is they contended that they were not going to have the Episcopal form of church organization, where they would have archbishops and then bishops and then priests, etc., in dioceses, in that hierarchical organization. They wanted each church, each congregation to be autonomous, to be independent, so that it could not be ruled from some foreign source. Okay, and they're proud of that. They elected the church members, elected their own pastors, and they could unelect them. They could oust them by popular vote, and they were proud of that. Okay. They also were very proud of their town hall meetings, where all the citizens would come together and elect their mayors and elect their city councilmen, and they could demand issues to be voted on by their councilmen and mayors, etc. And so they're proud of that, of the democratic element to their local government. Okay. They also were proud of the fact that they had a law called the Old Deluder Law, and of course, deluder means deceiver, and that was named after Satan, right? And you could easily guess what their meaning with this is, that They do not want their children to be deceived by the devil. And so therefore they want their children to be able to be literate and read the Bible. And so hence any village with 50 civilians or more had to have a school whereby the kids were educated and learned to read and write. And that was unprecedented, you guys. So the New England colonies were by far the most literate per capita colonies in the Americas. Okay, so they're proud of that, their literacy. And of course, they contrasted that with the Catholic Church, whereby, and including the Anglican Church, whereby the clergy alone were to read and interpret the Bible. They encouraged the lay people to read and interpret the Bible for themselves. Okay. And of course, they didn't foresee a problem with that would arise, as they had an assumption that the Holy Spirit would have the people interpret the Bible similarly. And that didn't happen. So there'd be a lot of dissension and disagreements over different verses in the Bible. And there'll be a lot of splits and a lot of different denominations and churches and disagreements, right, amongst American Protestants and their churches. So at any rate, you have all that, and they're proud of all this, right? And then also, there was a guy named David Hackett Fisher, and writing in the contemporary times, and he notes a very just obvious fact, and he notes the demographic, right, the category of the population that colonized each region. And he says the demographic that colonized the New England colonies, and the North for that matter, were members of the bourgeoisie. And the bourgeoisie just literally means people of the cities. And he said there's a lot that comes with that background, right? And he says, for one, the people of the bourgeoisie are very forward-looking. They're accustomed to change. They're accustomed to trying out things that are new. They're accustomed to being very ambitious and expecting to enrich themselves, etc. So hence, right, we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves here, but it's no surprise in the future that they're going to embrace the first and second industrial revolutions. And the North is going to take off ahead of the South in economic development. Okay. Also, they're going to tie this to the fact that the North is not going to hold on to the archaic institution of slavery and cash crop farming. All right. And so, yeah. Also, that the North is not going to hold on to patronage, patronage. With patronage, you have to have the right birthright, the right family connections, to have the right papers and permission to do something for a living economically. The North became more capitalistic early, right? Whereby if you were able to get a loan, you were able to get the economic means to start a business, you just did it. You didn't ask for permission. You just simply did it. And so capitalism kind of flourished early in the Northern colonies. Okay. But not just that, but regulated capitalism, where they put price ceilings on goods, if people charged exorbitant prices for their goods. Right? So again, right, they're contending that they were way ahead of their time. And then also, is number one boast that they had, and now when I say they, I cannot include the Puritans, but instead with New Englanders, I'm simply talking about the Pilgrims. The Pilgrims had egalitarian relationship with the Native Americans. There was a term in the Algonquian Native language, okay? The term was agua, like the Spanish agua, but with a W. And agua meant beneath or subjugated to. And it was very common. It was very common, supposedly, for a tribe to be subjugated to another tribe, but simultaneously to have another tribe subjugated to them, right? So that whereby they would have to pay tribute to a tribe, but simultaneously have another tribe pay tribute to them in a very intricate system, right? Of subjugation. Well, the Pilgrims, within a year, made an out of the ordinary, an anomalous treaty of equality with Massasoit and the Wampanoag Confederacy. And yes, that is the tribe and the occasion of the first Thanksgiving. Okay. Now, what I didn't have imparted to me as a child with this story was that there were some ugly facets to this, right? So for instance, the Pilgrims, they came in, they had a mercenary little army under a guy named Miles Standish, and they came in and immediately stole a cache of corn from Massasoit, and he didn't take very kindly to it. And they had a little skirmish, and things were tense at first. But then Massasoit, he supposedly contracted a sickness whereby he almost died. And there was a gentleman with the last name of Carver who visited him with an elixir, right? A medicine. And Massasoit became better and became very convinced that he became better on account of that elixir. And as he became better, he told Carver about the Massasoit tribe, the Massachusetts tribe, its impending attack upon the Pilgrims. And so they were able to engage in a preemptive attack on the Massachusetts. And then they had their celebration that they had done their due diligence in protecting and helping each other when each was in dire need of help. Right. And Massasoit really wanted the cannon and the gunpowder that the Pilgrims had on account of his fear of the Narragansett tribe, which was very powerful as a threat to his confederacy. All right, so any questions on this one? All right, so then I kind of do a 180 on number 2, and I do revisionist history of New England, primarily of the more controversial.
We back?
Yeah, we can hear you.
You guys, I'm very sorry. I
It's
have no
freezing
idea
up.
what happened. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, we can hear.
That was strange. All right, so with number 2, it's revisionist history, and it's primarily against the Puritans, who are more controversial. And it just shows their intolerant and their arrogant and imperialistic side. Okay. The Puritans of Boston, of Massachusetts Bay Colony. Domestically, they were intolerant toward their own. They had the idea, right, that man is wretched without the Holy Spirit, without being, quote, born again. And so they felt like you were not worthy of governing unless you were born again. And they decided if they believed you were born again or not. So you had to prove to them that you had had a born again experience with Jesus and had had the Holy Spirit come to dwell inside of you. You had to have letters of recommendation to prove that you had had such an experience and had a change and turn around in your behavior. And if not, you literally could not be a citizen in Massachusetts Bay Colony. They had a notion called the covenant, that they had made a covenant with God, that he would protect them from their enemies and bless their economy and bless their children, etc., as long as they followed God's decrees. But if they turn their back on him, that he would do the same. And so they had monitors called selectmen, and they would actually come and snoop on the people in their homes to see if they were up to no good. And they would have to do public penance and have to pay fines, or even in some cases go to jail for their sins. And so the Puritans didn't mess around. And of course, this is the same group that had the infamous Salem witch trials. Okay. And so, yeah, they definitely had a very exclusive side. And then they banished two people of note. One was a woman named Anne Hutchinson. She was a woman who had the temerity of having Bible studies in her home. And she had the temerity because the Puritans were, they believed in predestination, right? That man was so wretched that he couldn't even choose to accept Christ and forgiveness through Christ's blood, that God had to pull man to him to help him to choose him. And so she said that so those that God chose, right, were called the elect. And in her Bible study, she said that she wouldn't doubt it if some of the leaders of Massachusetts Bay Colony, including not just the political leaders, but some of the church leaders, were not part of the elect, but belonged to Satan to try to lead some of them astray. And so they demanded that she recant, that she publicly apologize before all the people and tell them that she was wrong, and she wouldn't do it. And so they ordered that she leave Massachusetts Bay Colony and never return on the threat of death. And then Roger Williams contended that religion is something of choice and free will, and that there should be no pressure put upon people, and also that it should be a matter of choice with Native Americans in particular. And they made him leave, and he was granted Rhode Island from the English government, and the first thing he did was grant freedom of conscience of religion there in Rhode Island. So at any rate, but then if that's not bad enough, the Puritans, they demanded tribute of Native American tribes, and even a Plymouth of their fellow Christians beneath them, and contended that they had to pay them, tribute economically. So many tribes took offense to it. The Pilgrims told on them basically back to England that they were throwing their weight around. And then in addition to that, they had a double standard about extraterritoriality, a fancy word, meaning that if their neighbors, right? If their neighbors came into Massachusetts Bay Colony and committed a crime according to Massachusetts Bay Colony's laws, and then went back to their territories, then Massachusetts Bay Colony could demand that they be extradited back to the Puritans and tried by Puritan law. But they would not reciprocate that practice. So the Puritans can go into other people's territories and break the laws of those territories, and the Puritans would not allow them to be extradited back to those other people's territories and tried by their laws. And so you see it in the case of a guy named Captain Jones. Captain Jones was Captain Stone. Captain Stone had a horrible reputation. He was known for extortion. He would kidnap Native American kids, hold them for ransom, and eventually he was murdered. And then suddenly the Puritan authorities demanded justice for the murderers of Captain Stone. And the Pequot leaders said, no way. This guy has been harming Native Americans for years. We're not handing these two gentlemen over. And when they didn't, and also the Pequot would not give tribute to the Puritans. So the Puritans declared war on the Pequot. This was just 6 years after the Puritans arrived, and it became the Pequot War. And another thing that looked terrible is, or two things, is as they began fighting, the Narragansett, they were a mighty tribe in number. The Puritans came into a village inhabited by the Narragansett, and they slaughtered many non-combatants of Narragansett. And one of their people posted on a tree as he ran away for his life a peace treaty, basically saying the Narragansett are neutral. They're not part of this war between the Pequot and the Puritan to try to shame the Puritan. So, but after that battle, the Narragansett got sucked into the war, but they were not supposed to be a part of this war. But when the Puritans fought, they became very racist and just began fighting against all Native Americans around them. And then the other example was the Fort Mystic massacre. At Fort Mystic, they chased a lot of the Native Americans into it. And again, there were many non-combatants in there. And they lit it on fire. And as people came screaming out for their lives, they shot them all down. They tried to leave no survivors from Fort Mystic. And when one of the Puritans wrote about it, he said that it was a sweet sacrifice to the Lord. Try to make it sound as if that would be pleasing to God, to the Christian God, doing that. So the Puritans, they could make Christianity look ugly. And then if you'll indulge me one more, and that is proud Miantonomi. Miantonomi traveled all the way to England to basically tell on the Puritans. And he was a sachem. He was like a sub chief. Native American, and another sachem named Uncas took him out on a walk, supposedly talking diplomatic things with him, and put a hatchet into the back of his head. And when asked by another Native American chief if they had anything to do with it, one of the Puritan leaders said, such is the just ending for proud Miantonomi. And there's good evidence that the Puritans put Uncas up to it for ratting on them. Right. Then this is not argumentative, but it's just kind of FYI. I figured you got to at least have a chance to know the basics of the Salem witch trials. So Salem Village was trying to become incorporated as a town. Salem Town would not allow them. They were outvoting them. Salem Town was choosing the pastor for Salem Village, and Salem Village wanted to choose their own pastor. So there's no coincidence probably that a lot of the young ladies that were making accusations of witches were choosing people in Salem Town. A lot of the people at first were marginalized people who didn't go to church and were living with someone out of wedlock, etc. So you have those types of arguments that are common in Salem witch trial arguments, theses in the books on them. And but yeah, take a look at that if you want to learn. I just have the basics on there. But 19 were hanged, one was drowned, and one was crushed to death with rocks, and a dog was hanged. Yeah, you heard that correctly. All right. All right, number 3. This praises William Penn. All right, this is court history of William Penn. The meekness of William Penn, right? Because of his father's military favors for the King of England, his father then died. What the king then owed to the father was then passed down to the son, young William. And William was trying to supposedly make up for lost time, because before his conversion to Quaker Christianity, he lived a very superficial lifestyle. He was a rich, spoiled kid, and he knew it. And he supposedly really tried to make good on the second part of his life in becoming a Quaker. And he goes out of his way to do a few things here. So for one, let's make it clear, he is given almost absolute power over Pennsylvania. He was also given Delaware and New Jersey. And so but we're focusing on Pennsylvania here. He's given almost absolute political power, and he's given absolute economic proprietorship, ownership of the land of Pennsylvania. Okay. So what does he do politically? He gives the opportunity for a legislator, a 2-house legislator, to cooperate with him in making laws. So where is it? Let's see here, right here. Limiting his own powers as governor and proprietor, he wrote, "I leave myself and successors no power of doing mischief." that the will of one man may not hinder the good of a whole country. He established a lower house of his bicameral legislature with elected free citizens whose entitlements were not restricted by nationality nor ideology. All right. Anyway. And then, in addition to that, he sends out gentlemen to give leaflets deliberately to some of the most marginalized areas in Europe. They go to Belgium. They go to the 39 states of Germany. They go to Denmark. They go to these areas where when you look at English colonization, none of the English colonizers, either the governmental colonizers nor the private proprietors, ever thought of going. And just very dirt poor areas. And supposedly this was idealistic. He knew that going to these poor areas, he wasn't going to get anything from these people, but that he was going to really enhance their prospects, their lives. Okay. For the first however many thousand, he was going to give them free land. And then after that, he was going to promise that he was going to give them very cheap land. And then by luck, the land was very fertile in Pennsylvania. Okay. Then he also went out of his way to actively recruit creditors so that only New York had a more plentiful supply of bankers to offer loans to people, because it takes money to make money, right? And so you have opportunities to go after that American dream. Then also, what really stands out in Pennsylvania colonial history, personally, subjectively to me, were the almshouses, ALMS houses. The almshouses were like the Salvation Army houses. The homeless and the needy could go to them and receive food, shelter. They would teach them a trade, and they would help provide them some type of a job and get them on their feet. And from what I've read, you guys, there was nothing comparable to it anywhere else in the colonies, at least in scope, in quantity, like all the almshouses in Pennsylvania. All right. And then also William Penn, in his Charter of Liberties, he issued freedom of conscience. Freedom of conscience. Now, you could be a citizen. You could have the rights of citizenship. Okay. No matter what, under his Charter of Liberties. However, if you were to run for office at the colonial level, you had to believe in Christ, even under Penn. All right, then number 4, William Penn was a puzzle. He was an enigma. Okay, yes, this guy learned the languages of the Native Americans. He came and he followed their protocol. He insisted that they only sell their land of their own permission, right? Of their own volition. Okay. He followed the Native American tradition of first listening to their grievances and making recompense for whatever grievances they had before they spoke of sales. He did do that. He was known throughout the colonies as the friend of the Indians. Okay. However, he was constantly trying to make money from big spenders and trying to purchase or sell land to big businessmen and speculators who demanded that the land be cleared of Indian threats. So he first had to buy the land from the Indians and get them off the land. So he was constantly pressing the Native Americans to sell more and more of their land. Their nickname for him was Quill Pen, because they said every time they saw him, he was holding a pen trying to get them to sell more of their land to him. And as that happened, there's no evidence from anyone else, nor from himself, at least written, that he ever had a pain of conscience about the fact of his observation that the Native Americans were increasingly selling all of their land. If he was truly their friend, why was he not concerned about that? And that's my question on number 4. All right. And number 5, I took a different turn from some of the popular Barnes and Noble's books. The Barnes and Noble's books, right? They will contend that because the Netherlands was, compared to the rest of Europe in the early modern era, more tolerant, that's the reason why Dutch New York was more tolerant. Okay. And the simple thing that they say is because Spain was so intolerant. You see, Spain took over the Netherlands back in Europe, right? And Spain even issued the Spanish Inquisition. The Dutch tried to follow the English and German Reformation. So the Spanish issued the Counter-Reformation and the Inquisition, and they began publicly killing a lot of the Dutch leaders of the Protestant Reformation to scare them. And it got pretty bloody and ugly. So when the Dutch finally kicked the Spanish out, right, they were in no mood for religious coercion. So one of the first things they did is they used the Spanish as an anti-model, and they declared religious liberty. So in cities like Amsterdam and Leiden and Antwerp, they invited Muslims, Jews, Catholics, Protestants, and they became known for their diversity in Europe. So it stands to reason, right, that was probably the reason why Muslims, Jews, Protestants, and Catholics could be found in New York City, which was known as New Amsterdam, when the Dutch took it in 1625. Okay. But I go a different route. I found evidence of the Dutch governor of New York, as well as the Dutch West India Company leaders saying terrible things about different non-Dutch Protestants, but saying that at least they were economically helping the colony, so let them be. One group after another. And you could read the quotes when you read number 5. One were the Quakers. Another group were the Jews. They said terrible things about the Jews living in New York City. And another one is they despised a guy known as the Black Turk Van Sally, who lived in Albany, New York, who had the temerity to live with a white woman. But you'll see if you read this, at least they were helping the Dutch West India Company make money. So they were told to just leave them alone, because at least they're helping us make money. So as you see in my title, I said they were tolerant, but they were only tolerant for economic reasons. Okay. So you guys feel okay on this? So? Any questions? Yes, Clara.
When I looked on Canvas, it said that I think it said the due date for the Southern Colonies was Sunday, February 5th. So like, is that correct? Like, which one should I have done first?
Yes. I hope that I put that in the announcement. I waited until Thursday to put the darn assignment on. So I said you have until the following Sunday, the 5th, to have it done, but also that you have until the 5th to do this one. So use your time wisely. I hope that's okay, because I don't want you guys to get, we can't get behind on schedule.
Professor, you're talking about the one you're talking about now is also due?
Yes, sir.
On the 5th?
Yes, sir.
So there's 3.
No, 2. Yeah, 2. So last week's, I didn't give it until Thursday. So I was giving you until this Sunday, but then I've had this one all this week. So these 2 are due on the 5th.
I didn't hear it.
Yeah, so just 2. Last week's and then this week's.
I didn't get that. You were breaking up.
Okay. Last
So
week's,
section 2 and 3 are due this Sunday.
yeah, so 2. Yeah.
2 is due Sunday?
Southern Colonies and Northern Colonies. Can you hear that?
Yeah.
Yeah, Southern Colonies and Northern Colonies.
Yeah, like the.
Okay.
Well, I had the one that was Black Legend Historical Assignment. That's number 2. And then 3 was Southern Colonies.
Yeah, so Southern Colonies and Northern Colonies are due this Sunday. Because I'm sorry. I'd love to give you more time, but we just can't. I'm by contract, I'm obligated to teach all of these subjects, and we just can't fall behind. And so I've just gave you extra on last week's because I took so long to post the darn.
I didn't get that. So the one we're discussing now is due when?
So the one we're discussing now is due this Sunday.
Wow. So you have 3 of them due Sunday.
No. The Black Legend was due last Sunday. The week that where it was, I have to
That's the
look
one you
at
gave
it.
us on Thursday. I thought they were both doing the same date.
Yeah, no, I sent an announcement.
They were both held in together. So
Yeah. No, and you turn it in late. If it was confusing to you, I'll take it easy on you with that as far as it being late. But yeah, last
I turned it in, but I just
last
turned it in
week
yesterday.
last week we had Southern Colonies, and because I didn't post it until Thursday, I thought that's unfair to give you only Thursday to Sunday. So I'm going to stretch it till the following Sunday. But I'm already putting in the assignment next week till Sunday. And I asked you on the announcement, please manage your time well so you could still stay on track and do next week's from Sunday to Sunday as well.
So now we have 3 and 4 due.
Yeah, so 3.
Sorry, just clarifying. So are the dates like incorrect on Canvas? Like are they different? Because when I look at it, like I have it pulled up right now, and it just says like for the week of like for February 5th, it says that due is the Spanish colonization and Southern colonies. So I just wanted to verify that are the northern ones are they also due for February 5th?
Well,
Or
We were
did
all
I go
confused.
too far ahead? Let's see here.
Looks like you had them both balled in together.
Have we talked about Southern Colonies yet? Oh, wow. Yeah. Yeah, you guys, let me see. I gotta find you guys.
Maybe if you can make number 4 due Wednesday or something. I mean,
Yeah, the one I just
It froze
did
up again.
is due the 12th. Yeah, the one I just did is due the 12th. Shoot. Yeah, I was supposed to go over the Southern Colonies today.
I think that's what we're working on now.
Well, what do you say? What will you say if I send out an announcement and I switch the order of them? And have the Northern Colonies do along with, because yeah, you sure as heck don't have 3 due on the 5th. No way. So what if I ask you to do this Northern Colonies one and the Black Legend on the 5th, and then next week we do Southern Colonies last before the test, and then I send an announcement to notify everybody. Would that be okay?
And that's the 12th.
Yeah, so then we'll have, and I'll switch the dates on modules.
Southern Colonies on the 5th, on the 12th.
Yeah, so then I'll switch the Southern Colonies to the 12th.
All right. I just got through reading it, but good thing I didn't write anything up on that. So
Yeah, I already wrote most of mine, but I think that will be okay. Like,
Yeah,
I
did you
I
guys
already
make some at least some decent notes today on what I just covered?
This is the one, we don't have any, you sent us out the literature?
Yes.
Okay, I'll download it. Bless you.
Yeah, and you know what? Because of the crazy circumstances, if you put in, a lot of work on the Southern Colonies and you want to turn in the Southern Colonies for the 5th, and you end up doing the Northern Colonies on the 12th, I'm not going to mark anything down late. Because
Thank
this is
you.
all on me. But yeah, yeah, I made a terrible
spread a little
assumption.
thin there.
I'm at my other school today. We're on the Northern Colonies. We're a week ahead of you guys. No, oh, thank you, Kevin. Yeah, Kevin, I was gonna just go down the list and try to figure out what your last name is, but that helps me, Kevin. Okay, so how about we do that? You guys just
Okay.
do please for sure, okay, by the 5th, submit your Black Legend, because I'm gonna for sure want the Black Legend here on the 5th. And then in the next 2 weeks,
I got that.
give me the yeah, exactly, Alexis. If you've already done the Southern assignment, give me the Southern or the Northern Colonies as well by the 5th, and then give me whichever one's left over next week. And I don't care which order you do it in. And that works for me, okay? But since I already blabbed about the Northern Colonies, I'm going to speak on the Southern Colonies next week. All right. So yeah, thank you guys. I apologize. And please feel free, okay, to raise your hand and be like, Mr. Cowell, I think we're on the Southern Colonies. If it seems like I'm not speaking on the right one, okay?
Okay, next Thursday.
So yeah, next Thursday, okay? And we'll shoot for 4:00. I'm out of town today, so this was just out of the ordinary why I had to move it back 30 minutes. All right. So are we good?
Sounds good.
All right. Thank you guys. Thanks for rolling with the punches.
All right.
All right. Bye, Stephanie. Bye, you guys. I appreciate
care.
you.
Take care.
You as well. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you.